How are you, sir? Are you
I'm
at
all
the
right.
On the
I'm
Edge
all right.
studios
Am I
nearby?
what?
Are you in your apartment? Or are you at the On the Edge studios? Where are you?
No,
Okay,
no. I'm in my apartment in my
gotcha,
smallest room in the place, but I had an old template uh,
gotcha.
sign, so I just tacked
Right.
that onto the wall.
I think that's wise.
But
So,
yeah, same situation.
right. Yeah, catch us up on what's been going on there, and then I've got a few questions for you, certainly, about because if a lot of people are saying this is largely about an attack on NATO from Trump. Um, more than on behalf of Vladimir Putin. Y-
Well, yeah. I mean, and that's kind of his mission statement. That's what Putin wants him to do, so that's what he's going to do.
Right.
Whether or not it's because he's getting, uh, direct orders, or whether or not they just share the same kind of worldview,
Hmm.
not really sure. But regardless, I mean, that's what he's supposed to do. He is supposed to break up the NATO alliance,
Right.
um, and this has been a part of a process that the Kremlin has been involved in for well over a decade. First shear off Britain from the EU in Brexit, and then shear off um, the European alliance.
Right.
Uh, I mean, it's it's what Putin wants. It's the only way Russia becomes a significant power again,
Right.
and Trump's more than willing to apparently play into that narrative.
Right.
Beijing gets Asia, Moscow gets Europe, and America gets, you know,
Our
the
hemisphere,
American,
South
yeah,
America,
this,
and
this that,
yeah.
that part of the, yeah, South, Central, and North America. So anyhow, yeah, it's a mess.
Whatever. Lukashenko, Alexander Lukashenko, has agreed to sign on to be a part of Trump's peace council for
Yeah,
Ukraine,
yeah, I
which
saw that.
which means it's dead in the water.
Yeah,
So for those that don't know, Trump has created this kind of like this ridiculous peace council thing. Um, and I guess it's an adjunct to his thing um in Gaza. He thinks, oh, that worked, even though it didn't, and it hasn't. Um, So he's on Tuesday, he signed a document to join the Peace Council, which I mean, again, this reeks of like the Patriot Act. Like we'll use the words they like, and that means that they'll think we're doing the thing that they like. Just because you use the word doesn't mean you're doing the thing, and especially as you create like terms around the world that are antithetical to peace. Trump
yeah.
called him a highly respected president, Lukashenko, last year. Yeah, by Moscow,
Well, and I mean, he's a bit of a clown,
a bit.
Lukashenko. He's
Yeah.
he's he's 100% a puppet
Hmm.
for Putin. But also, in addition to that, he's just mismanaged Belarus so badly that
Right.
he's a terrible leader. He's an
Yeah.
awful, awful, terrible leader, and not just
Well, no
because
wonder
he's
Trump
a
likes him.
dictator. Yeah,
Right.
he's incompetent.
Yeah.
So they share that in common.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, all of that is farcical.
Yeah.
Um, they don't want peace here. I mean, look. I mean, that's the other thing that's so frustrating about what's happening in Davos is,
Hmm.
you know, they're not even talking about Ukraine, and they should be. That should
Right.
be that should be, at the top of the list of things to talk about, because there's this bull in a china shop who's demanding territorial conquest and
Right.
threatening, open conflict with NATO. Nobody's talking about the fact that we're sitting in darkness at minus 12 degrees in Kiev.
Right.
Apparently, I did not. I must admit, I'm going to be full disclosure. I did not watch his Davos speech.
Yeah, it's
I
like
cannot. I
it's
cannot bear
ridiculous.
to listen. Yeah,
It's
no.
rambling
I read the
nonsense.
synopsis. Yeah, I
Yeah.
read the synopsis. I read the kind of analysis of it. It sounds like he was typically unhinged as usual. It sounds like
Right.
a lot of it was actually aimed at a domestic audience.
Yes.
Um,
We're the hottest country in the
but
world. Don't forget it.
yeah, we're the best. We're the best, and it's because of me.
Hmm.
That sort of thing, which I think is aimed
And
for an American ear.
and by the way, also the presidents that won World War II were stupid people.
Yeah,
Just for the right, the entire greatest generation, what they fought for, what they died for, they were stupid people. And he's
yeah,
smart because he would have stolen the territory we protected for our allies. That's why. Nothing
yeah,
could be more Putin. It's goofy. And so to some degree, it's hard to tell right now what he feels like he could get uh, you know, uh, what he's really saying versus what they put in his teleprompter versus his rambliness that he passes off as the weave and all that nonsense. It's hard to tell how much of it he actually believes because I don't know that he has any deep beliefs at all. Um, but he's definitely got this weird fixation that there's never been a good president until him. Maybe Abraham Lincoln. Although the people on his side, kind of like how they feel about Hitler, feel that it's Lincoln's fault that we fought the Civil War, right? They're still
yeah,
grinding about that. So
yeah, yeah.
where do you? Okay, so
It,
looking
it's
at how. Go ahead. Sorry, and then I'll ask you a question. Yeah.
well, no, I know, and just when it came to his speech there, of course, I centered in on the Ukrainian aspect of it, and I
Sure.
guess the only real mention that I saw of any real that
Yeah.
is worth commenting on is that apparently he thought Zelensky was there,
Yes, he did. He
and
thought.
it's
Yeah,
like,
I was going to bring that up. Yeah,
dude, dude, Zelensky,
is in Kiev.
Zelensky's capital city is got 4,000 apartment buildings, not just apartments, not just houses, in darkness right now.
Yeah.
He's living in a Kiev that is pushed to the absolute brink. I had a
Right.
meeting today because we're trying to get the show back up,
Yeah.
but without power, it's just not viable. So I
Right.
met with a friend of a friend who's a electrical engineer, and we're going to see if we can hardwire a generator into the office or
Hmm.
some other alternative. But we're still going to have internet problems. But
Right.
so anyhow, I went to this meeting, and we are so stretched to the limit here, um, with civil engineers who are just trying to keep the city working,
Right.
trying desperately to get power back
Hmm.
to those 4,000 homes, that they've had to neglect other things. And one of the things that they've had to neglect clearly is clearing the sidewalks.
Hmm.
And this is a bitterly cold winter, and the sidewalks are frozen over. And I literally fell, on
Hmm.
my, had went down into a crawl because I couldn't get any traction because they're not removing the snow. And so
Right.
when they don't remove the snow becomes ice. And when
Hmm.
it's ice, you have absolutely no traction. So this city is becoming unmanageable.
Hmm.
You can't walk around. You can get to maybe you can get to your local shop and back, but that's about it.
Right.
Um, Thankfully, a lot of the city is built with underground facilities like
Hmm.
shopping
Same
malls
way.
beneath.
Same way Toronto is, right? Built for these kind of
Yeah,
winters. Right.
right. Built for them. So it's it's I say it's on the brink of like falling apart. It is at a crisis,
Yeah.
absolutely 100%. But there's still chugging along. But for him to sit there in Davos and be like, "Yeah, I'm going to meet with where's Zelensky," and I'm going to, and then somebody pointed out, "Hey, he's not here." He's like, "Oh, I think the meeting's tomorrow, then Thursday." It's like, no, no. And also,
Right.
by the way, one of the reasons why Zelensky isn't traveling, first, first and foremost,
Yeah.
above everything else, is we're in a real crisis here,
Yeah.
and as I said last, I have been saying now for the better part of 2 weeks or whatever it's been since the massive attacks, is um, we are looking at the potential of a very serious humanitarian crisis.
Hmm.
And that will lead to internally displaced people, uh, strain on civil society. What do you do with grandma? When
Right.
she's if she is on, you know,
Yeah.
the 20th floor of a high rise that's been without power for 3 days. The
Right.
family has to make a decision. Do we take grandma down to some sort of facility? And
Hmm.
all the questions and the stresses that come from that. So there's going to be, if something isn't done and soon, there's going to be a lot of internally displaced people and probably another massive influx of refugees into Europe.
Right. Or out.
And
Yeah.
that
Outflow.
is
Yeah.
what, right. And so
Outflow. Yeah.
that is what the president of Ukraine is dealing with right now.
Yeah.
He's not, and then the other reason that has been stated, a little bit under the radar, is Zelensky asked for security guarantees,
Hmm.
and they couldn't be given to him. And he's like, "I'm not going anywhere near that place. That there's,
Hmm.
if my security can't be, reasonably guaranteed,
Hmm.
then I mean, there are Russians all over the place. There's oligarchs. There's I don't know if it was a reasonable thing that he was doing to say I'm not going to Davos because I don't feel safe. I don't trust you guys.
Right.
Whether that was a real concern or whether he was trying to kind of send a message that
Hmm.
like I kind of see you, Donald Trump, as I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to be alone in a room with Vladimir Putin, and I don't think I want to be alone in a room with you.
Hmm.
So,
Right.
anyhow, the whole thing in Davos is a real mess, and it should have been Ukraine front and center, but this maniac is changing the agenda, and so now
Hmm.
we're talking about Crazy Town.
Hmm.
So anyhow, all the while, a major European capital is sitting freezing in darkness.
Right. And the Russians, there was a Russian paper that wrote. See if this goes here real quick. Oops, hold on. This business right here. Um, let's try to. Why am I not doing that? Hold on. This guy right here. I think this. Okay. Go to the thing, you silly. There you go. Trump has decided to sink the EU. This was written in a Russian paper. Um, uh, Trump has decided to sink the European Union, declares one Russian paper today, writing about Greenland. Lots about Greenland in the Russian press because it's definitely marching orders. It seems to me, but also domestic economic concerns because there's also a thing in Russia right now that while Trump is finally doing what they ask him to do, um, they're in deep shit. They have galloping inflation was the phrase that they used. And quote, Russia's car industry is completely dependent on China's. Now, this is a post COVID issue that the United States and other countries had, is why we are reshoring chips more than any other thing. The rest of the components, there's this feeling that we could do an emergency retooling and make cars entirely in the United States if supply chains were cut off like they were under COVID. But chips are not the same thing. And so, one of the reasons why the Chips and Science Act was passed, if not the single greatest reason, was because we need these things because everything runs on some sort of microprocessor at this point. So much so that Russia and Ukraine are purchasing drone components from the same factories in China, according to Financial Times.
Yeah.
That's because that's the business, and we talk about this with Rob Glenn, our dear friend in Chicago, all the time, is that China's now in the components industry. They make the pieces that you need to assemble whatever you want to make. And in the United States, we do have the capacity to make these things, a good portion of them. It's just expensive. It's prohibitively expensive. We would just make a lot fewer of them, but we can make them. Russia can't make them anymore. They do not have, not only do they not have the facilities in a lot of cases to make components like this, they don't have the people to do it because they sent most of their, either the people that would be able to do it have fled the country so that they don't get conscripted and forced into fighting alongside, again, an African soldier who was promised a bunch of money, who's now finds himself standing there with a piece of plywood carved to look like an AK-47 instead of an actual gun, and an anti-tank mine attached to his chest, shoved in the direction of Ukrainian soldiers and told if he turns around and tries to come back, they'll kill him. All those people have either left or they've been killed on the battlefield, or they're currently fighting, or they're being, beaten and sodomized by their fellow soldier who was a criminal who was released. And as long as he kills enough Ukrainians or pretends to, they'll let him come back to Russia and just fold right back into Russian society. There is no upside to this, right? But they buy the components from China because that's the cheapest way to do it. And this is an emergency. After this is over, Ukraine will be making all of its own components. And they will become one of the biggest industrial bases for these kind of components, especially when it comes to military gear in Europe. Period. Full stop. End of story.
Yep.
Russia won't. They're not going to have a manufacturing boom after this because they still have a commitment to their corruption that, is a point of pride. Other countries, quite frankly, are ashamed of their fraud, or in the, case of, our situation with Trump, either trying to purge it and bring cases against it, shore up our laws in the future so that when we get another bite of this apple, it actually sticks. But Russia's like beat their chest about how the system, might makes right, like you've talked about. So that applies to their economic situation as well. They're not going to
Yeah.
make this stuff. It's goofy.
The only thing they do make, well, not the
Hmm.
only thing, that there are certain sectors of Russia's drone technology that's actually very, very competitive, it's very dangerous, and should be taken very seriously. But the thing that they mass produce more than anything else is their version of the Iranian Shahed, which is
Hmm.
which is it's the again it's the motorbike or whatever
Yeah,
what did they call it,
it's a
the
scooter. It's
scooter.
a Vespa. It's a Vespa with wings. It's loud.
Yeah, and
It's got
it's
short
very
range.
unsophisticated. Yeah, it's
Right.
not. It's they mass produce it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that they have the ability to do, and that's a problem for Kiev, and it's going to continue to be that kind of that problem. We don't
It,
anticipate this to get any better anytime soon.
Well, I will say a couple of things. One is, if yes, they can mass produce them, but they're shit. And if they
Yeah,
were mass producing a silent drone, um, Ukraine would be in a lot worse position. But it's because Russia can only mass produce these hunks of junk that the
right.
Ukrainians have a fighting chance against the ones that they do put out there. And I mean, people need to wrap their head around the fact that Iran has a more sophisticated drone manufacturing system than Russia does. Iran, with sanctions that have been going on longer than the ones that Russia has been dealing with. Now, it helps that Betsy DeVos and others were selling them HP printers and that kind of stuff under the guise of, just, secretly violating the sanctions and selling them office equipment. Well, where do you think they pilfer the chips from to put in their higher level drones? They buy a bunch of HP printers and pilfer the circuit boards in them for the components that they would need. You just reprogram them. These level of chips and microprocessors that are available in those things, you could turn into a bunch of things. A printer, a 3D printer is just a regular printer with an extra axis. That's all it is. It writes in plastic, but that kind of thing. So if you're making drones, for example, if you have one microprocessor from an HP color, if your printer can do color and black and white, it can also be repurposed, that chip, into a 3D printer, for example. It can also take directions forward, back, up, and down, because that's how the paper moves in and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of sophistication in just a modern printer. Betsy DeVos was selling these things by the truckload to the Iranians. Why? Well, it's because they used them specifically. They just tore the damn things apart. It's not like they're printing flyers at a higher rate. They're turning them into more sophisticated stuff.
Yeah.
Russia has been facing sanctions at a level, like Iran, in a much shorter time, and they still haven't managed to do that. They still haven't managed to like repurpose stuff or create their own fabs. It's insane to me. You don't even need like 4 nanometer chips to make a drone work. It's absurd. These are the kind of chips you find in toys. But Russia can't produce them. They're not going to be able to anytime soon. And China specifically doesn't want them to be able to. So the Europeans won't sell them chip fabs because of the sanctions, and the Chinese won't sell them chip fabs because they don't want that to lose that permanent customer. The Ukrainians, when this is all done in whatever way, even if there's, we seal off that area and it's security guarantees and there's a DMZ now and blah, 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 whatever that happens, the day after that happens, the Europeans can supply the Ukrainians with chip fabs to make this stuff
Yeah.
at a super advanced level. I'm gonna see if I can find the ground drones that Ukraine is now using, the little rolling
Yeah.
tanks with machine guns on them. They can
Yeah.
make those. Russia can't. It's insane to me that I watched. I don't know if you saw, but I watched. We on the show we did one of Tucker Carlson's bizarrely pro-Russia monologues that he's done lately. They're so ham-handed that it looks like he was literally given a script by the Kremlin. Say this because we need these clips for our shows to show that Americans that can bend the ear of the president think this. Like it literally
Hmm.
looks like they just said, well, all we need you to do is hit these points, and we'll choose these little clips and use them in our news programs as examples that the American people buy this horse shit. And one of the things was about how advanced they are and how we need Russia and stuff. And it's just it it's so out of line. It sounds so 2006. Um, and yet
Yeah.
they're paying for this. They're paying him to do this clearly.
Yeah.
Because what else have they got?
Yeah. Well, it's no surprise that Tucker is shilling for the Kremlin. He's been
Right.
doing it for a while.
Hmm.
The other thing that is going to drive that military industrial production is the fact that the Europeans no longer trust the Americans, and
Right.
they're not going to buy American weapons. But when this war is over, there is going to be a very sophisticated, very capable, and easily um, ratcheted up, scaled up industrial complex here. And
Hmm.
I say only scaled up after the war because, obviously you start making enormous weapons factories in Ukraine right now, and it's just a big, fat
Yeah.
target.
Yeah.
But once the war is over, scale up, and suddenly Ukraine is the arsenal of Western democracies instead of America.
Right.
And that's straight up down to the fact that the Europeans don't trust the Americans anymore. There has been
Well,
Uh,
I will say
a
until
lot of damage.
yeah, and until Trump and Vance pass as the leaders of the country, they're basically they know that even in the Senate, there is more support for Ukraine than there is in the White House. What they don't trust is the White House, and unfortunately, the White House is is the gate right now. It's not that the American people aren't for him because uh, largely we are, and so much so that the House and the Senate, even if they do it under cover of night to protect Trump with plausible deniability, or just for the fact that he and his people don't read the stuff he signs anyways, they put in extra money for Ukraine. The difference is that he's negotiating what will effectively be security guarantees. And what's going to happen is there just won't be any while he's in office, unless he sufficiently at some point just gets pissed at Putin to some degree. The best thing that could happen, for Ukraine right now is that the rest of the Epstein files come out
Yeah,
because honest to God, and it very well could be that Russia is sort of promising Trump that the stuff they have won't come out, or that the people they have control over will run interference for him while it happens. This is what I was pointing out before, though. The Fifth Brigade's new toy, which is what they call them, is an unmanned ground vehicle (UGV). That get used to that little moniker going forward. That's a robot with a gun on top. It's a tank. Let's see. I'll take it out of Reader so you can actually see um there's a picture of it. There it is. That's what these
hmm
things are. They're little remote control tanks. They got multiple cameras on them, and they have a machine gun right in there. And that arm can go up and basically point around like a duck's head and just shoot anybody it sees. And they have a bunch of these things, and Russia does not. That's what's crazy about all this is that the Ukrainians are, insofar as I know, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the base part of this is, other than that they built it using, I don't know, like tractor or industrial like grain lawnmower kind of equipment, and then repurposed it into a ground drone. But the fact that Ukraine has these things and is effectively using them in mass, they're building them, more of these in the same way that they're 3D printing the air drones. We hear about those all the time, but they're building these things nonstop. Um,
yeah. And they've
this is
already
what's
had they've already
freaking us. Yeah.
had they've already had an offensive, which was
Hmm.
led by these things. They
Hmm.
sent those things in first,
Yes.
along with aerial drones, and it was basically a Ukrainian offensive using almost exclusively robots.
Yeah.
I mean, you call them what you want, call them a drone, call them a UGC, call what they're
Yeah.
non-human combatants,
Yeah.
which resolves an issue that Ukraine has had for a very long time, and let's be frank, is still going to have. This
Yeah.
is not this is not a silver bullet,
No.
um, but it's going to help, and it's going to help because they do have a problem with mobilization in Ukraine.
Right.
They're outnumbered. Um, but if they can build robot warriors, then it gets just down to who builds more of what, and
Hmm.
can field the better version of whatever new form of platform is going to be decisive in the war. So we'll see,
Hmm.
how much this alleviates the mobilization problem that Ukraine has. But
Right.
you're absolutely right. This is beyond the capacity of the Russians.
Hmm.
Um,
Which is
it's
bizarre.
for
That's the part I'm trying to get
which is
like
bizarre.
across. It is.
Yeah,
It makes no sense to me that a country that is supposed to be the second biggest army in the world, that is, that was, competing with us in the space race just a few years ago, and has nothing else to build. They are effectively, a gas station with nukes. But one of the other things that they have is that they invade countries. They send the Wagner Group into Africa. They've taken Chechnya, part of Georgia, Ukraine. This is their only real industry right now, and still they're uh,
yeah.
they're sucking bugs on this, and I don't get it. It's so odd, other than the brain drain. I mean, do you think that's why? Because I know we saw this at the beginning of the war. All the people that beat feet and got out of the country, the young men, especially who were worried about conscripted and being conscripted, and their families leaving, not because of a refugee crisis like the Ukrainian ones left, but because they didn't want to be a part of this.
Well, but it goes back even further than that because, and I had to briefly look it up because I always forget the name of this place.
Sure.
Um, in 2010, when Medvedev was president,
Hmm.
sock puppet
Hmm.
president in Russia,
Sure.
they
Yep.
tried to start their own Silicon Valley, and they called it Skolkovo, which is
Hmm.
outside of Moscow, was said to be like Russia's Silicon Valley. The
Right.
only problem was, one, they kind of had a ceiling on what they were developing, and it didn't seem to go much further than that. Not
Right.
only because there were serious problems with structure and all the rest of it at Skolkova, but also because the second these guys got to a certain degree of
Capability.
talent
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Right.
capability, they got poached. They're like,
Yeah. They
where would you
left.
rather live? Where do you want to
Yeah.
live? Do you want to live in Mill Valley,
Hmm.
or in some home country, county in southern England, or do
Hmm.
you want to sit in Russia and
Have your work
live
stolen.
under, yeah, have your work stolen and have to deal with all the problems of living in a corrupt society and a dictatorship? And they left. So the brain drain has been going on well before this war started.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And they Skolkovo never got off the ground, and
Hmm.
it's part and parcel because of what Russia is. Russia doesn't necessarily, with some exceptions, they don't promote individuals.
Hmm.
The individual is not the thing. It's the unit. It's the
Yeah.
collective. That's the general idea. I'm painting with a very broad brush
Sure.
here, but you're not going to see a
Hmm.
Steve Jobs in Russia. You're just not. They don't. They
Hmm.
don't. The culture
Right.
isn't there for that. Um, and so I think that's a huge contributor as to why they cannot keep up with the Ukrainians, because by sharp contrast, and look, don't take just my word for it. I've got several episodes up on the edge where I'm talking to drone developers
Hmm.
or guys that are using drones on the front lines, and they're better at it. They're just better at it. The
Right.
Ukrainians, they encourage entrepreneurship. They encourage small unit kind of cohesion, and
Right.
doesn't have to. You don't have to be part of the. You don't have to be under Moscow's thumb, or under the magnifying glass, or stifled from being risen up to a star, um, with certain limitations, of course, but uh, because that's
Hmm.
not the way things are set up over there. Here in
Right.
Ukraine, completely different. So they encourage um, talent, and they encourage inventiveness in Ukraine, and
Right.
it shows.
Well, and also, never underestimate the power of actually giving a shit. And the problem
Yeah.
that the Russians have, I guess, versus the Ukrainians is that there's a buy-in from Ukrainians because it's about their freedom. There is not a buy-in from the Russians, by and large. Um, Barbara's saying, Hal, at this stage, why can't Ukraine take offensive and just bomb the shit out of Russia? Because of limited materials, effectively. And because they've got to watch out for the ratcheting up to give Russia an excuse to say use a tactical nuke and stuff. So there's a mixture of those things. It is better that Russia be forced to, from a strategic and tactical point of view, keep sending meat waves and having them knocked down. It is much better for Ukraine if they're using drones, which are responsible for somewhere in the order of like 60+% of casualties on the Russians, and these ground drones and other stuff that look like something Russia should be able to bat away, that they're losing to for for a myriad of reasons. That if the world looks at it like, wow, Russia's like Ukraine's just scrapping and they're kicking your ass, looks a lot better than they're bombing cities inside Russia. And the whole point is that the more Ukraine avoids hitting civilian infrastructure and civilian homes, it it shows the world, and it makes it harder for Trump to hide behind Russia's, an equal partner in the peace process and all this stuff. So there are a lot of strategic aspects of this that are just as political, which is true in any war. If you become your enemy, it's harder for people to back you.
They've done a couple of hits on a couple of electrical
Yeah.
stations in Russia. I think not really to harm the Russian population, but basically to kind of like, we're not the only ones who are going to live
Hmm.
through this winter suffering. So
That's
it's
right.
it's a little bit more on the kind of symbolic side,
Hmm.
um, and totally legitimate, legal targets. Uh,
Right.
but what Ukraine has clearly decided to concentrate on is destroying the purse, the
Yeah.
Russian purse. And
Yeah.
that is their fossil fuel industry.
Hmm.
Domestically, internationally, whether it's refineries or, actual, pumping stations or what have you. They're trying
Right.
to destroy Russia's economy, and they seem to be doing a pretty good job at
Yeah.
it. So they're they're clamping down on the shadow fleet internationally.
Hmm.
Surprisingly, even the Americans have kind of taken to uh, uh, ramping up, trying to destroy the or curtail the shadow fleet, which is
Hmm.
keeping Russia on a lifeline because they're illegally selling their oil and gas.
Right.
But the Ukrainians are targeting those. Ukrainians are targeting, anything that provides funds for the Kremlin is fair game. And it's
Yeah.
exactly what they're focusing on. So they're not focusing, aside from keeping the line in the east and along the front lines, trying to keep those static, trying to keep the Russians pinned down. Their other primary focus is to choke them off
Yeah.
from their source of income, which is how they pay their soldiers. And you're right. You're right. You make a very good point. Ukrainians have. I was just at this meeting with this guy who's a electrical engineer, but he wears all sorts of different hats, and he's a entrepreneur and does a
Hmm.
lot of fundraising and aid work and stuff. So we had an interesting conversation, and he himself mentioned this to me just today, was the
Hmm.
fact that we're you cannot win against a population that is determined to fight no matter what.
Right. Right.
We learned that in Iraq, we learned that in Afghanistan, we learned that
Hmm.
in Vietnam, and I don't understand. One of the things that really pisses me off,
Hmm.
and what I don't understand, is those who think that Russia is an inevitability just because
Hmm.
they're big and
Right.
they're supposedly powerful and all the rest of it. Well, so were we in Iraq and in Afghanistan and in Vietnam. And how did that go?
Yeah.
Now we're a democracy, so we had to answer to our, we had to answer to the electorate. So it's very different than what Russia has the capacity to do.
Hmm.
But what my the guy I met with today was the point he was making was they don't have skin in the game. All they've got is soldiers that are being paid, and they don't
Right.
really want to. They don't want to fight. But
Mm-mm.
the Ukrainians, and I was
Want to
just going to say the
live.
Ukrainians want to fight. They don't want to fight. Nobody
Yeah.
wants this war to end more than the Ukrainians. But the Ukrainians are willing to die for their
Hmm.
country, and they are unified, and they are determined. And I mean, we haven't even gotten, those who say that Russia is an inevitability. They fight for months over a little town like Chasiv Yar out in the east, which is built for like
Hmm.
60,000 people. What are they going to do when they start hitting industrialized cities that are built for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people?
Right.
It's going to take them months, if not years, to try and conquer these things. And then let's say that they do, which they're not going to. But let's
Hmm.
say in this fanciful world that that the tankies love to talk about, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, that you might as well super beef because it's an inevitability. I make the point of, like, they fight for little towns. They haven't even gotten to the big towns yet. It's going to be a massive grind. They're going to lose hundreds of thousands of people. It's just going to take months, if not, well, not months. It's going to take years for them to grind through these cities, at least 2 years.
Right.
Um, if something unexpected doesn't happen. Um, but this idea that they're an inevitability is just 100% wrong. And, the Ukrainians see it. The
Hmm.
Ukrainians aren't going to give up. And even if the terrible thing the scenario I just envisioned, if they were able to break through the industrialized defensive lines in the east, they haven't even gotten to the insurgency or the guerrilla war that's going to happen.
Hmm.
And the Ukrainians are just not going to stop fighting because, well, I mean, that's it for them.
Yeah.
Then there is no more Ukraine.
They have to. Right. Also, can I show you this real quick? This is the guy I've been referencing. There
Yeah,
was a video he posted. This is an African soldier who was it was basically like paid to come up and fight for Russia, and then found himself basically without a passport and the ability to leave. That's an anti-tank mine strapped to his chest, attached to his like. And there's video of them beating these guys and all kinds of stuff like that. So
hmm
the fact that anybody, especially on our side of the aisle, would say anything but that the current leadership of Russia and everybody behind this attack is anything but a malign group of monsters, is nuts to me. It's also, if like, I can see why, if Tucker Carlson saw this photo, he'd think it was awesome slash funny. Right? He would
yeah,
he what's wrong with just making suicide bombers out of African soldiers that you BS'd into thinking they could get a paid job going to war for somebody, and
you're right.
I
You're
mean,
right.
and I'm
God,
sure
that's
they think,
disgusting.
yeah, I'm sure they think this is
I can
hilarious.
hear that stupid cackle of his,
Yeah.
over
Well, what
this.
are you going to use it for? What are you going to, that's yeah. This is what I was
Uh,
talking about, and this.
and
It,
every time, by the way, every time we bring up Tucker,
ugh,
which I'm loath to do, but
right.
I always love to point out, and given the opportunity, I'll point it out again. Um, his big trip to Russia, where he sat
Yeah.
down with her and all the big, 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 big thing. What I still love about that trip is when they took him to the metro, and he was like, "Look
Oh my
how
God.
clean it is. Look how efficient it is. Oh my God." First and foremost, you can do that in a dictatorship. You can make people, keep, as you want to say, you can't fire the poor.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing, the thing that really gets me about that event, and I know it's not prescient right now, but I just love bringing it up. You know what station they went to? They went to
Hmm.
Kievskaya Vokzal. They went to Kiev railway station.
Right.
Kiev, railway station. There's a couple of train stations and metros and subways in Moscow that have themes. And one of them is the different like republics of the former Soviet Union. So you have a Belarusian, station. You have the Baltics, but they took him specifically to Kiev metro station,
Hmm.
which is filled with iconography, which he had no idea about. And he
Right.
does a piece to camera talking about how wonderful and clean. And, oh,
Hmm.
wow, look at this great metro station. He's sitting in front of a mural that depicts Russians as a superior race to Ukrainians.
Right.
It depicts these Russian, these beautiful, handsome, strong, strapping Russian Bolshevik soldiers liberating the Soviet Ukrainian Republic, and these
Hmm.
poor little country bumpkins who are, looking up in idolatry towards the
Ugh.
great big Slavic, savior that's come to. And
Yeah.
he had no idea. He had no idea he was standing in front of a mural that
Okay.
basically said
I think you're
Ukraine is a
right.
shitty little nothing.
I think you're right, but I also think that there's that Tucker Carlson is the kind of person who would subtly stand in front of that without bringing it up
Mm,
as a wink and a nod to the racists in our country and around the world that this appeals to.
yeah.
I absolutely think that.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
entirely possible, but I think the more likely thing is he had a fixer.
Hmm.
A representative of the Russian
Oh yeah,
government
a
with
handler. Yeah.
him that said, a handler that said, "Hey, this is one of our favorite murals. Why don't you do it in front of this?" And he
Hmm.
just, okay, sure. Not knowing. I mean, the mural is incredibly offensive.
Right.
It is if you're a Ukrainian and you're looking at Tucker Carlson in front of this damn mural and him praising the metro station and
Jesus
not even
Christ.
realizing that you are in an imperialist named metro station.
Right.
I mean, it would be.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
trying to think of an equivalency in the United States, but it
there.
would be literally like saying, like, well, yeah, I mean, okay, Native American, there are issues with the legacy of the American Indian, the American
I'll go. I
Native
think you could go.
Americans.
I think you could go simpler with that. It's like standing in a museum for the Daughters of the Confederacy, specifically talking about how
That
if
works.
the South, Alabama looks like shit, because people in New York won't let them just be awesome. That I mean, that's the equivalent. Like it's these mean Northerners that force them to lose their industry, right?
Yeah,
Because they took slavery away. But you're standing in the like you don't even bring that up. You go, if it wasn't for the North and all these elites in New England stealing all the money and blah blah blah, Alabama and all these places would be flourishing because they had an industry. They were doing awesome. They had a great business model. That's what he's saying. Like it's
yeah.
it's fucking gross.
It's gross. It's really gross. It's really, really gross. The ignorance of what's happening here and the
Hmm.
legacy that the centuries of history that is
Yeah.
culminated in this fight. The fact that our media has not done a better job explaining this to the
Hmm.
American public, and that this is exactly analogous to the
Hmm.
13 colonies or
Right.
to the Irish fight for independence, which we supported, and which is seen retrospectively in the United States as a good thing. You know, uh,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
this
Uh,
is
th-
a war of imperialism. These guys are
mhm.
trying to colonize and destroy Ukrainian identity. And the
Right.
fact that we have not explained this properly to our populations is
Yeah.
is on us. And I
Yep.
mean, it's why I created On the Edge, but I shouldn't be the one doing this. This
Hmm.
shouldn't be my money. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm happy to do it. I will drain every bank account. I will sell off everything in my portfolio. I will sell off all of my assets. I don't give a damn. This is bigger than me. All
Hmm.
right, it's bigger than any of us, and we're not properly explaining it. And the fact that Davos is being overwhelmed by the charade that is Donald Trump and Greenland
Right.
instead of talking about what they should be talking about, which is this
Right.
place. It's
Yeah. Trump.
all part of the same thing, and we are losing the information war, and it's
We got to do something about that.
it's really
I
important we
completely
got to do
agree.
something.
By the way, subscribe to On the Edge, new shows as soon as they are able to, but watch the old shows because they're just as relevant. If you haven't seen them yet, share them. You can also, do you have it set up so that people can clip pieces of them as well on your shows? Because I know that's an option on YouTube that you can clip
Old
things.
dog new tricks, but I'll look into it.
Great, great.
But yeah,
But
go look out the old stuff. We are going to get back on the air one way, come hell or high water. We are going to get back. I
right.
don't know how we're going to do it. This city, I can't stress enough. This city is in pain. There
Yeah.
is a crisis happening here,
Yeah.
and just surviving is the priority right now. But we are going to get the show back up and running. We're going to get guests. We are going to keep trying to. The narrative needs to come from Kiev, not from Moscow. And if if our media isn't going to contribute to at least hearing from Ukrainian voices,
Yeah.
then it'll have to fall to independent people like me and a handful full of others who are here, and that is a disgrace. So
Yeah. And those of us over here who are bringing them as best we can. And so people who are watching the show, like, subscribe to my channel as well. Help us get to 100,000. It will. We want to. You want to. Everybody who's screaming that we should impeach Trump again, or we should get people. I've been saying, like, call our representatives and all that kind of stuff. That's true, but it won't be effective until we have the numbers. Until we have control of the House and the Senate, it's all academic at this point, and he will have runaway power to try and do nearly everything that he wants, even if it's just slow rolling our response, which is enough to give Russia a toehold in a bunch of different arenas, not just in Ukraine, but in our country as well. So, and the same thing applies to shows like mine and shows like Phil's and our dear friends like Boston Brian and others. We got to get our numbers up because we're competing with, bot laced channels with millions of fake views. And we need the real people who really watch the show to subscribe and help us push the show around because, and also to get it in front of the right people. So if we've said something today that you find particularly important or you find missing in the discourse, do me a favor, clip it and share it with people in the mainstream media that you do know and respect and like, whether it's Deadline White House, whether it's Rachel Maddow, whether it's people on CNN who seem to be understanding it, or whoever, even if it's, and share it with people on Fox who have the garbage alt take, who need to hear this debate so they don't just get to have that one talking point bouncing around in their head. I would rather slow their roll by them having to deal with the truth, which absolutely puts a hitch in their step. If it doesn't stop them, it keeps them from thinking this is an unopposed idea in their head. So share the show, and share the stuff that we're talking about, both here when I have Phil on in midweek when we can swear, and on Saturday on the radio show at the House Parks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Share those episodes, please, and clips of those things. You're able to clip them from YouTube and from Twitch. If you're not subscribed on either of those places, I recommend doing that so that you can grab clips and share those around if there's a specific point you want to address, even if it's just your own super chat being shown or your own, when we grab some questions and that kind of stuff. It's incredibly helpful and it's necessary because, the uh, all the screaming that Dim Pool did attacking Ukraine, with such ferocity, as if they attacked Russia, as if they fucking started this, we now know was a paid effort by Russia through tenant media to him. They are bought and paid for. Everything they say about the
Hmm.
mainstream media and the legacy media, they do in spades for cash under the table. There is not this coordinated liberal media that they're fighting back against all the time. There is a base liberal media that has to chase the laser pointer because there's just too many stories and not enough hours in the day, even with 24-hour news. The reality is that the people who are casting those aspersions are participants in exactly the kind of system they claim exists in mainstream. There is an element of, we need to get Phil on MS Now. We need to get Phil on CBS News. We need to get those things talked about to remind people, because this is an important story, and it's just as engaging as any other story you would see, and all they need to have is the reason to do it. So that's got to be
Yeah.
our renewed commitment this year. We have to change the numbers. We have to raise the subscriber level of channels that are talking truthfully about this stuff independently, and we have to elevate those voices to the mainstream talking points, the way there's this pipeline on the right to do it. And we see it all the time, whether it's Trump directing the message that ends up on CNN and MS Now, or whether it's Fox literally getting its talking points from Tucker Carlson or from Candace Owens or from Nick Fuentes, for that matter, which they absolutely do. That's the trickle up situation of their talking points. That's on us as viewers of this show and shows like it's our responsibility to start elevating the voices that matter and that will make a difference, and that aren't just on purpose or accidentally towing the line for the Russian talking points and getting us all wound up on stuff that Trump can't do, so we can focus on what he is actually doing to coordinate with the Kremlin to do this kind of stuff, because it's a reality and it needs to happen. Phil, thank you for being on. I look forward to the next episode of On the Edge. Please stay warm if you can at all. We put in the links, and I think Mark P put it up again, the link for generators for Ukraine, which
Yeah.
blew past its initial number and has continued to increase, which is terrific. For me, that number should be equal to the guy who Trump flipped off. If we had that kind of reach, we would. I hope at some point Trump flips off this show or starts to bitch about me, and he will if we send his crap, back to him via this. So please help us out by sharing the show, super chats, patreon.com/housemarks, all that kind of stuff, and please subscribe to On the Edge, so that we can elevate these points, because we are ice skating uphill against
Yeah.
this media narrative that is being directed by and large by the Kremlin through cash payments on the right, and the manipulation of the algorithm on YouTube to artificially elevate it, and that's got to stop.
It's
We
orchestrated. It's
Yep,
orchestrated, and we have to get organized to fight
yeah,
back against
absolutely,
an orchestrated program of information warfare. So yeah, let's
that's right,
all of us please spread the word, get more
yeah,
subscribers, clip stuff, share, whatever. We cannot let Moscow run the narrative. We have to push back.
absolutely, that's right. Thank you so much for being
All
on,
right,
Phil.
bud.
I look forward to
I'll
talking to you on Saturday.
talk to you on Saturday.
Okay,
If there's an update about us getting back producing shows, you'll be the first one to know.
I appreciate it, brother. All right. Be safe. I'll let you
All
go.
right.
All right.
Take care.
Cheers. There
Bye.
he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, Philip Ittner joining us live from Kyiv. I got to say, is there another show that that has their own like live correspondent in Ukraine this regularly, that has been going this long? We've been doing this for years now to raise awareness about this and keep it on the front of people's minds, because the goal is to is to subvert the conversation and control it. And I will not let that happen. I'm going to keep having Phil on until this war is over, until he can retire to Michigan with a feeling of job well done. And he has been dedicated to this from the very beginning. He showed up in the chat just like you guys, trying to get this message out, and it has grown into him being on here, and then on Tom Hartman's show, and then his own show, but we need to get those numbers up. We need to support not only my show but his show and others like it, so that we can start competing on a level playing field with these bot farm type channels. It's hard. We're ice skating uphill here, and I need you to do it. I don't ask much, and I don't ask often. As a matter of fact, I probably should ask more often. But subscribing at this point becomes less about just getting my numbers up for my channel, and the message that we have here and what I talk about actually starting to make an impact this year. Actually, we start punching above our weight class in terms of what this channel is. So uh, I know people talk about how much and you know how I feel about the languages, that we need fighters and all this kind of stuff, and that people need to get into the streets. But one of the easiest things you can do is subscribe or become a Patreon supporter, or all that kind of stuff. And I hate asking for that kind of stuff, but it is the difference between me being able to confront the people that we talk about on the show, or just continue to react. And I don't want to do that. I want to start getting on the leveling the playing field, and I need you to do it. So you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to make a little ad clip of me saying this little chunk of stuff, and then I'll play it during the commercial breaks on the radio show, just like 30 seconds, to remind everybody how important this is, because I don't want to hammer this too much, and I would rather be about the conversation. But reminding people works. It becomes a necessity, and so I'm going to do it, because again, these numbers matter in a similar way to the numbers that we have in Congress and in the Senate. I hope that rings true with you guys, and I hope you will help us do that. Other than that, I have no opinion. All right, I'll let you guys go. I will see you this afternoon for Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. We have obviously a lot to cover. I'm going to do bits of the Davos speech and other stuff, and cover it because we have to, and not just the little pieces that you'll see drawn, but there's a lot of other coverage being done. And part of it is one of the reasons why Trump is flooding the zone and doing all these speeches and signing all these things and giving longer and longer speeches, is to fill the right wing media space with lots of him talking about how great he is, because the Epstein files are still driving the conversation in that area, and his failures in the economy, and calling affordability a hoax, and then saying it's solved anyways, I don't know what you people are bitching about, is his next is his second tier attack on the criticisms he's getting from his own side. So I will also continue to point out the criticisms that he is getting from the right, and the division that is actually there based on real elements, like his participation in Epstein's schemes, and his absolute his love for that man while they were friends, and the utilitarian aspect of him distancing himself. But for Epstein being caught or called out, Trump would still be buddies with him. Trump would still be inviting him to New Year's Eve at the White House. So, but we need the numbers to do it. So there I've said it. God damn it. And I love you guys, and I will see you later on today. Take care of yourselves, and take care of somebody else. And we will, let's see, where's my little thing? We're going to grow this show this year. We're going to grow this show. We need to double my numbers by June. That's got to be our goal. Okay. That's my goal for this year. We're going to double my subscription numbers by June on all platforms. I want to double them by June. So it's asking a lot. But until I do, people are not going to pay attention to the criticisms that I make, or the points that I point out in certain tiers of the interwebs. So know that. And so if I get a little more forceful with promotions this year, I don't have commercials. I don't have sponsors. I don't have secondary money coming in that makes this show happen. That's it. This show is a self-perpetuating machine. That's it. I'm not going to do ads. I refuse to do it. And this show will, will stand on its own 2 feet. And that will be in large part thanks to you guys. So hit the like, share the show, share clips from it on your socials, that kind of stuff. Anything you can do, and know that I greatly appreciate it, and that you're doing some good work by doing it. And I'll keep at it. I'll do. You guys know I have done this show for free, and I would continue to do it. But if we're gonna make it have an impact, it's got to grow. It's just the reality of the circumstance we're in. So share the show. Appreciate it. That's it. I've said my piece.